What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing a react to this video right here. It's called Will AI Make Language Learning Obsolete? Now, YouTube actually recommended this video about a week ago. I have not seen it yet, but at the time I was busy with some other videos and I figured I'll just take note of it and come back to it later. So I just searched it up and check this out. Literally the two top videos have exactly the same name, except for the I in AI is slightly different, and they've got roughly the same amount of views. So do you reckon we can outdo them, guys? I'm actually thinking I might just name this video Will AI Make Language Learning Obsolete, just to fucking troll everyone. Who knows? Let's see if we can get more than 6k views. But we're gonna be watching this one. It's from Matt vs. Hey, it's Matt vs. the World now. What happened? Previously it was Matt vs. Japan. We're now at Matt vs. the World. Oh, are we gonna have a season 3? Matt vs. the universe. Matt collects the Infinity Stones. Matt fucking clips us out of existence via Snap. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. But anyway, we're gonna watch this video from Matt where he is the sun and he's shining down sadly upon us all.
Do you think it's going to be useful in the future, like to learn a language? Like, I don't know, like 30.
Okay, so like instantly I noticed a couple of things. This is obviously, it's taken from some Skype session conversation or something, but the first thing I actually noticed was the painting in the background. I was like, is that a nuclear strike on a city? And then I realized it's just the light reflecting off the freaking painting or the photo there. It literally looks like an early strike, as if it's just been hit and it's starting to expand out type of thing. And it's like, yeah, I want to catch it just in that moment. This is the perfect shot. But anyway, yeah, I got distracted.
40 years in the future, like, am I just going to be obsolete for knowing Japanese, or like...
That's a good question. I mean, well, in a certain sense, learning language purely for like economic benefits is like already largely not a thing, because pretty much the vast majority of the world just operates in English now. And so, you know, there's very like only hyper specific situations in which like you'll make more money by learning a language, right? And
okay, I'm going to agree with Matt here about the fact that, you know, learning a language for economic reasons is not the smartest use of your time. However, I'm also going to add something, because he says here the reason being is the majority of the world operates in English. That is true, but I actually believe we are at essentially peak English in the world, and what we're about to enter is the age of basically, you know, AI and stuff like that, where all these large language models, they're going to take over a lot of these manual tasks which were assigned to people, you know, to translate, you know, news articles, random freaking marketing things, you know, random commercial emails between businesses, or even internal emails between different offices and stuff. It's going to take over all of that stuff, which means that there's going to actually be less economic incentive to learn English. Now, it's not going to go away, naturally. It's going to take a very long time. But what I think is probably going to happen is we're going to enter a period where, unless you have a need to actually engage verbally with someone on the international market, you most likely are not going to spend the time and resources learning English. In fact, you're probably going to, you know, do something else which is economically more beneficial to you at that point in time. So I think we are realistically at peak English, and we're going to see a drop-off. Now, overall, this is the same thing with most languages. Like, a lot of people learn languages for economic reasons, and this is going to become less of an incentive. Now, this doesn't mean there still won't be, you know, jobs for learning languages, but I also don't see this as a bad thing, because what's going to happen now is there's going to be some people who were previously forced to learn, let's say, English or some other language because, you know, economic reasons, but now they won't be as pushed towards that, and they might be able to free up that time and say, you know what, I want to study a language that I'm interested in, that I have a desire to learn. So I don't see this as necessarily a bad thing. And like, if you want to see, like, if you want to look at like an equivalent type of thing, it's like when the car took over, people didn't just stop riding horses. Yeah, the vast majority of people did, but there's still jobs out there for it. There's still people who have horses. It's just more of a specialized thing. It's just not something that everyone needs to go out and learn how to do, how to ride horses, how to maintain horses, because, well, the vast majority of people don't have a need for that anymore, but it will still exist. And it's the same thing with languages. And like in Australia, for example, you don't really need to learn a language, okay? If you do decide to learn a language and you want to make money off of it, your best option is actually learning Auslan, because there's actually job opportunities there. But like learning Chinese, It's not going to be of much benefit to me. It's going to be like a party trick at work type of thing. If they really need someone who speaks Chinese, they'll just hire someone who's native.
Almost every case, if you just want to make more money, you're better off just learning some skill that you can do in English, or improving your skills in English. And so that means that already the only benefit to learning a language is kind of like a personal benefit, right? Less rather than like an objective benefit, right? It's like something that just is meaningful to you personally. And in that sense, although I think those translation things will get better, and they're already in certain contexts good enough to be useful, right? Like I remember being in some bar in Japan a long time ago, and there was like a couple that like the girl was Japanese and the guy was like Taiwanese, and they like spoke zero of each other's languages, or maybe the guy was from Singapore, I don't remember. But they were basically literally just using Google Translate, and that's how their whole relationship worked, just only on Google Translate. And like obviously that's like really limited, but
yeah, that's a pretty wacky scenario. Don't know how that would go long term. I'm guessing they were in it for the physicality and the mysteriousness of the fact that they literally can't communicate. Something interesting going on in that relationship, but yeah, but realistically, work-wise, I'm already seeing, especially with my wife working in logistics, some of the offices that she works with in other countries. Previously, they had someone who would communicate with her in English, or obviously in Chinese as well with China. But like, for example, places out of South America, they don't even bother now. They just email her in Spanish, and like literally she just runs it through the AI that they're running in the company there and just pops it out in English, and she just responds. And we're assuming they do the same on the other end because the communications are still ongoing. They're like, there's no issues anymore.
Somehow it was enough for them to, I mean, I don't know how serious their relationship was or how long it lasted, but like if it's through like text, you can get pretty far nowadays with Google Translate. But I mean, ultimately, when it comes to those real-time things, it can never be 100% in real time because due to the sentence order of Japanese being different from English, like a lot of times you just don't even know how to translate the English sentence until you get to the end of the Japanese sentence, right? Like you don't know how to start the English sentence until the Japanese sentence is over, which means sometimes to have like a good translation, there has to be like a 3-second plus lag, which is really long in conversation. And it's probably going to try to find some balance of like shortening that while making the translation more unnatural or something. And obviously it's not going to really be the same because like Japanese people just have different thoughts, and like the mentalese in their head is different from the mentalese in our head. And so
unless you're trying to build like long-term relationships, friendships or something with someone of a different language, I don't think this matters. Like I remember in the past, my wife, again, when she went to Russia, she just used Google Translate. And she just showed them the phone, they looked at it, they typed back, they showed her, and that's how she dealt with everything from the hotels to the trains. A incident she had with there locally, she had to deal with the police and stuff, and like, wasn't really any issues. Sure, it slows down communication, but like, obviously because she doesn't plan to live there or travel there often, it's just easier to use one of these services. So this is like an edge case, unless you're going to go live there, or you're going to build a relationship with people who speak that language and they don't speak your own, it doesn't really matter.
So it's going to basically translate to like the closest mentalese that you can have in each other's languages, but then you're not really expressing like exactly like you're not receiving exactly what the other person is intending to express, right? It's like you're both talking to like a subtly different version that's getting created by the translation machine, and it might look on the surface like you're smoothly like actually it's kind of interesting because many years ago when I was still in college, I got not hired, but like I guess technically hired for a very small amount of money, like by my school to do this live interpretation job where my city where my college was sister cities with some city in Japan. I don't even remember what prefecture it was. And the mayor of that city in Japan was coming to visit our city, and 2 mayors were going to meet. And I was basically the best Japanese student in the whole Japanese program at my college, so they like asked me to go and be the interpreter. And at the time, like I was still fluent in Japanese, but like I didn't have the skill to like really interpret at that level. Partially because my Japanese wasn't as good as it is today, and partially because interpreting is itself a skill you have to train to be good at. And
yeah, interpreting's pretty freaking hard. I've done it twice. Okay, twice with Esperanto and English. Both of them were really quite random instances. So the first time was there was a businessman who came from China who spoke Esperanto but did not speak English. He was an older guy, so for whatever reason he didn't speak English. But anyway, he was trying to negotiate something with another woman who was Russian but lived in Australia. But she did not speak Esperanto. So she was speaking English, I was interpreting, and obviously he's speaking Esperanto. And it went for a good, 30 minutes as they were figuring out this little thing regarding, what was it? It was like some type of, I can't remember, it was some type of, product that she wanted to, either she wanted to sell or he wanted, I think he was like the manufacturer and she was the one trying, yeah, that's right. So she was trying to get something manufactured and he ran basically a factory over there and she was trying to figure out, if they could get some type of deal happening. But that was the first one. That was so long ago. But the second one was completely random, okay? So basically, there was a Sydney Language Festival here, and what happened was we had someone who came to the festival and they were going to give a speech, and they were actually going to give a speech in Auslan, okay? And they were talking about, what was it? I think they were talking about, it might have been Tokipona, but it might have been something else. Anyway, they were going to give the speech in Auslan, and they had an interpreter coming with them who was going to interpret that to English. Now, the reason they were going to give it in Auslan is because they have Tourette's and they didn't want to be standing up on the stage randomly swearing their head off. So they were going to use an Auslan interpreter to interpret to English, and it didn't matter if they swore in Auslan. Yes, that happens if you got Tourette's, okay? You will swear in the language, okay? But anyway, for whatever reason, what happened was the interpreter was actually sick that day, and he still wanted to give the speech. So I actually interpreted because he also spoke Esperanto, and it's okay if he's swearing in Esperanto because the audience wouldn't understand. So he was giving the speech in Esperanto, and I was interpreting to English, and that went on for a good 30 minutes, and that was pretty intense, eh? Yeah, it's hard to explain. You really got to be goddamn good at a language to be able to pull that off.
But I basically just bullshitted my way through the whole thing, and I know, a lot of moments where sometimes I didn't even fully understand and I just made something up in the other language. And there are other times where I understood, but I just could not think how to translate that in the moment. So I just said something totally different that made sense. And no one noticed because the Japanese people didn't speak English and the American people didn't speak Japanese. So I was basically just kind of bullshitting my way through it, but no one could tell but me. And so basically they were each having a different conversation. Right? I would say something that made sense. So they,
There was a couple of instances of this when he was giving the speech and he was speaking in Esperanto. And then I was interpreting the English where it's not that I didn't understand him. It's because I was still interpreting while he was talking. I'd miss parts and sometimes I would kind of fill in the gaps. But he also understood English. So he would hear me interpret and then he'd re-say it in Esperanto if I got it wrong. And then I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I'd fix it up.
They both felt had this illusion they were communicating with each other when in a sense they kind of weren't. And obviously, mostly I was translating it well, but there were these little bits and pieces. And that was when I had this insight of oh, wow, almost by definition, bad translations don't get discovered as bad translations because if the users of the translations had the capacity to notice they were bad translations, then they wouldn't need a translator in the first place, type of thing, to a degree, right? Obviously, if it's really bad, you're just this makes no sense, and then you can tell. But I think it's gonna be basically a version of that with these little instantaneous translator things, where it's if you want to get business done, or you just having you're ordering some food, or you have an exchange at the reception at a hotel, it's gonna be perfectly fine. And so in terms of that, survival need of I'm going to go take a vacation in this country, so I'm going to learn a little bit on Duolingo, that will probably become unnecessary, although people will probably do it anyway because, they just think it's a fun, cool thing to do.
Right.
But in terms of if you really want to meaningfully engage with the culture on a deep level, you're still going to need to know the language. So I think there's always, yeah. Actually,
yeah, but this doesn't answer the question of, is it a smart move job-wise? And I would say don't put all your eggs into that basket. Make sure you've got some other type of skill set. And you can chase this as a dream, to use the language in some way. But the opportunities, the financially gainful opportunities, will be rapidly shrinking.
I think there's going to be a continual language learning renaissance probably. Because the more that AI just does everything for us and we're going to feel meaningless, basically we're all going to be retired people. I kind of see my dad now. He retired recently, and now he just does whatever he wants all day, and he's actually really happy. It seems at least from my perspective, just doing hobbies and hanging out with his friends all day and stuff. So I feel hopefully all of humanity basically becomes like that because AI just creates hyperabundance. I mean, I know it's a really optimistic scenario, but
I don't think that will happen. I imagine the world is going to go in a much darker direction if AI can do everything. What's the need for the worker type of thing? But yeah, that's a totally different conversation.
Shout
that
out.
case, people
Yeah.
are gonna have nothing to do all day, so maybe they'll just learn languages for fun because ultimately everything will just be for fun anyway. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
people always learn languages, just like people still play chess, even though computers are
Yeah,
better
that's a
at
good
chess.
point.
And
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess
yeah,
I was just asking, like, is it gonna like, I can communicate on a personal level and build a relationship. Like, is that gonna become obsolete? It's like, am I gonna be able to speak to a Chinese person and build a meaningful relationship with somebody in Chinese, even though I speak no Chinese technically? Like, I mean, I guess kind of what I was asking is like, is that gonna take the place of like language learning to like replace a deep, are you gonna be able to
well,
form a
I
deep
think
level
in a way
connection with
you
them?
could because like there are couples like that. The one I just said a second ago are extreme, but I know like a lot of couples where like the guy doesn't speak any Japanese, like it's like a Western guy and a Japanese girl, and the Japanese girl speaks like poor English, and the
Yeah.
guy speaks like virtually no Japanese. So they speak in English, but the girl's English is pretty poor. So from my perspective, it's kind of like how deep of a relationship can you really have if you can't understand each other with precision and like really express exactly what you're feeling?
Yeah.
But clearly it kind of works for some people, so it probably depends on what you want out of a relationship. But I think if you want to be able to like have the deepest possible relationship, then you need to have high language ability, and I don't think that the
Mm.
translation is ever going to fully replace that.
Mm.
So overall, I don't disagree with Matt at all in this particular instance, but I feel like the question at first was actually about, is this a smart move economically as a job? And I would say the answer is probably not. Okay. Except in a few specific instances, and you would probably know those. And in Australia, those specific instances are you're going to become an interpreter for the deaf community, i.e. you're going to learn Auslan. Apart from that, probably not. However, there is some very specific instances where if you learn some indigenous languages, there can be job opportunities there. But going out and learning French in Australia, I don't think that would be a smart move economically. Like, you're not going to have really much opportunity to use that, or any of the big languages. And now, if you're doing it for personal reasons, or if you want to engage with the culture and everything, then obviously, yeah, that's great. Totally, like, all for that type of thing. But job-wise, if we're talking about jobs, the amount of time that you need to invest into a language to get to a level where you could probably use that language in order to make money, not many. There's a reason why a lot of YouTube polyglots are YouTube polyglots. They make the money from the videos, okay, and talking about languages and running the courses, not actually using the languages, professionally besides on YouTube. So if a YouTube polyglot tells you, oh yeah, you can get all these different jobs and stuff, and they're on YouTube, there's a reason. Okay, because that's probably for them financially the most beneficial job that they could find. Well, that's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Sub to the channel. I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, I will find you and make you forget your native language.